My favorite Easter tradition growing up was hiding my Easter basket. My mom and dad would hide the basket somewhere in the house, and I would have to find it, and many of you probably had that tradition as well. And I just enjoyed the hunt and the mystery of it. And one of the coolest parts about being an adult, a grown, mature man in my household, is I can require that my Easter prize or basket, which I still have, be hidden. My wife obliged to this for a little while early in our relationship. She even took it to a whole nother level, having my father-in-law hide the basket on the roof of their house. Admittedly, it's the first time and probably the only time I never actually found it, not without significant help. So kudos for the idea of putting the basket on the roof. It's great. Bad thing is it melted all the chocolate inside the roof and the sun and the heat. Something to do that. Yeah. It was still cool. Now, Easter has its roots in a much older Jewish tradition, a much older Jewish celebration, the celebration of Passover. Passover is this yearly event, this yearly festival of remembrance, and it remembers when God intervened in history for God's people to rescue them from slavery from Pharaoh over 1,300 years before Jesus. Through Moses and Aaron, God would lead these slaves to freedom, but it would come through quite an ordeal. God would wage war against Pharaoh. Pharaoh, who likened himself to a god and commanded the respect from his people as if he were God. And if you're going to pretend to be God, going up against the actual creator of the universe, it's probably not going to work out all that well for you. God would send plagues, as we remember them in the stories, these catastrophic events that would cause great suffering and tension and stress on the people in Egypt and on Pharaoh in particular. And it would culminate in the greatest and most devastating of them, a plague of death. Death for the firstborn sons in all of the homes, including Pharaoh's, in Egypt. But the people of God, through a message, through Moses, would have a way of escape and a way of redemption or freedom from that death. You see, they would take a lamb, an innocent, without blemish lamb, and they would sacrifice it and have a meal on the eve of this catastrophic event, this devastating event. And they would take the blood. They were to take the blood from this lamb and put it on their doorpost, paint it on their doors, share with others who didn't have one of their own to use. And as the presence of God, as this Spirit of God would cover Egypt that night, death would come in the homes of those not covered in the blood. But for those who had blood on the doors, they were safe, they were protected, they were saved. Not long after, Pharaoh changes his mind. But like any good stubborn villain, he decides that this isn't going to work. I'm not going to take this lying down. He gathers up his army to chase after these escaped now Hebrew people, and he's going to kill them. So this Hebrew people, having grabbed everything they could carry, and they're heading out of town as fast as they can, as many as a million of them or so, running away, chariots chasing them close behind. They're not going to get very far. Well, they actually run into a body of water, and they're in trouble. Water in front of them, Pharaoh closing behind them. Some of them want to go back. They could go back. It was this idea that it may not have been great, but at least we were alive and at least we had food. And hey, Moses, what have you done? You've led us out here to die. They could try to go around, but they wouldn't get very far. The army was already upon them. Moses had some other ideas. Now, the famous part of the story, Moses stretches his staff out over the water, and the waters divide, and the people walk through to freedom. It's this great escape, reaching its full conclusion. In fact, the waters then crash behind them, drowning Pharaoh's army. This is remembered in Passover. This is what Passover does. It's this annual celebration, this week of remembering that we are a redeemed and rescued people. We are a people of the Exodus, people who God pulled out of slavery and into freedom. And near the start of this festival, near the start of this celebration, there's even a particular meal, the Passover Seder, to really dive in and remember exactly what had happened. The Passover Seder is a complex, intricate drama. It's a story that's told to remember what happened to their ancestors in Egypt. There's the smell of the different foods, there's taste in the matzah, and there's bitter herbs, and there's intrigue for the kids to be involved and discover part of the mystery. It's a full-blown event to draw the people back to what it was like and how good God has been to save their people, this redeemed people through this redeeming moment in time. Now, as a part of this Passover Seder, there are 4 cups of wine. From Exodus chapter 6, verses 6 and 7, there are 4 I will statements, 4 promises of God. He says, I will bring you out from under the burdens of Egypt. I will rescue you from bondage. I will redeem you, and I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. A cup of sanctification, a cup of deliverance, a cup of redemption, and a cup of acceptance and praise. And every Seder is a part of the telling of the story and a part of the tradition. These 4 cups are drunk at specific points for specific parts of remembering what God had promised their people. So early on in the evening is the cup of sanctification, and then the cup of deliverance, recognizing that this is the God who has set these people apart, that God's people are holy and sanctified for a special purpose, God's people, and God has even pulled them out and delivered them now from slavery and from bondage from under Pharaoh. The Haggadah is read. It's this script that highlights the story of the Exodus and works the family throughout the dinner through these different traditions and blessings and songs. And after the meal, during the evening, the 3rd cup is taken, the cup of redemption. This is the cup that really speaks to the idea that you are no longer a slave, that you have been redeemed, that your value and your worth has been restored. And Jesus, during his Passover meal, before he would die on the cross, participating in this Passover Seder, newsflash, Jesus was Jewish. Jesus grows up a good Jewish boy, probably memorizing Torah, the first 5 books of our Old Testament, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Jesus' family and friends are steeped in the tradition of these cups and the tradition of what became known as the Seder. Shortly after their freedom, and we read about it in Exodus chapter 12, this guideline or these rules are established so that every single year the people would come together and the people would remember what God had done. And that would evolve, that this event, this tradition would grow over the years. And in fact, even the idea of Seder, the name Seder would be given to it at some point in history. And Seder means order. There's a specific order to which you will do some things for this festival, for this event, for this meal in particular, that will help you as the people of God remember what God has done. And in the order, in the Seder, as Jesus would have been doing with his disciples, with his followers, he pulls out the third cup and he takes a little bit of a left turn. It's not just the cup of remembering what God had done in Egypt to redeem God's people, but now Jesus says something else. Jesus says, this cup now, this cup represents my blood, the blood of a new covenant. This blood, the blood of this cup now. This is the blood that will buy your freedom from your greatest enemy, from yourself, from that inside of you that drives selfishness and greed and pride and regret. We read the scriptures and we identify this disease as sin. Jesus says this brokenness inside of you that God can't stand. This blood, my blood, which is about to be shed for you, from now on, when you drink the third cup, when you drink this cup, you'll remember the new covenant that I am now establishing between God and God's people. In the Passover Seder, there would be a fourth cup, the last cup. And this is the cup of acceptance, or sometimes known as the cup of praise. It comes on the heels of reciting some songs. Psalms, really, from the Old Testament, Psalms 113 through 118, if you want to read them sometime. There's a pretty good chance that the songs that Jesus and his friends would sing on the eve of what we now famously know as the Last Supper are these very scriptures, these very songs, Psalm 113 through 118. And as you read them, you get this sense of a present reality, but certainly a future reality that God's people are looking forward to. It's this idea that a day is coming where God will fully accept broken humanity to God's self. Fully redeemed, finished, all of the brokenness gone, in a full embrace, the perfect God with God's people that are no longer broken. And so these songs, they shout out with praise and thanks for the day that will happen, the day that will come. But Jesus won't drink this last cup. Not this Seder, not this Passover. Jesus puts the cup down. He says, I'm not going to drink it until the full kingdom reality that is now breaking through, until it has come to fruition. Until I come again. Until the entirety of redemption has run its course. Then it'll be finished. Then I'll drink that cup. But not now. He's laying a sense of hope. Hope that there is a day coming when brokenness is gone and humanity can find itself. God's people will find themselves in a full embrace with the perfect, loving, holy God. After the Seder, Jesus would begin these trials and stresses. You know the stories. He would be arrested that evening. The next day, he's taken before Roman authorities. The Jewish leaders are afraid that Jesus, a Jewish teacher, a Jewish rabbi, is going to derail the Jewish way of life. So they want him gone, they want him taken care of, and they convince Rome that he's a would-be imposter king, that he's a threat to Caesar ultimately. And so Pilate, the local Roman authority, with really no skin in the game or no reason to care about Jesus, orders him to be hung on a cross, and he dies. When Jesus dies on the cross, the final sacrifice, the final blood, the final lamb has been given. The price, the debt for sin has been paid. Humanity's greatest problem, this brokenness inside that we can't do anything about, has been solved. The answer, the path forward, has been given. We can take ourselves back to the slaves escaping Egypt. They've come up against the water and they've nowhere to go, and they're afraid, and they turn around and they see Pharaoh coming, and the thought that's going through some of their minds is, listen, we could go back. We could try to go back to our problem. We could try to outrun it. What other choices do we have? And we face that same choice. So they could try to go back to Egypt. So some of them want to go back to the problem, but what happens when you go back to your problem? You go back to your problem and you die. The Hebrews, if they turn around and they try to run back to Egypt, they're going to run right into the army that will kill them. So you can go back to your problem and die, or you can try to outrun your problem. If the Hebrews would have taken a right or a left to try and go around the water, the chariots were not that far behind. They would have caught up to them and died. And the same thing happens to you and me. When we try to outrun our problems, just delaying the inevitable, it ultimately kills us. But the cross provides another option. The cross tells the world that your greatest problem has been taken care of. It's Moses reaching his staff over the water, and the water's parting, and now you have a choice to take a step forward into something else, something new. Yes, you may not fully understand it. Yes, there might even be a little bit of fear involved. But there's a promise that it's good. There's a promise that it's worth it. There's hope. What does it look like to step forward through the waters into something new? What does that mean? What is that about? Well, that's for a few days from now. That's where I encourage you, wherever you are, to attend a Sunday service. Be somewhere on Easter Sunday and hear exactly what it's about, and exactly what it's like, and exactly what it means to step into something new and something hopeful that God has done for you.